Hello guys, this is Mike again. This podcast is actually a response, it's a sort of a response, a reaction or comments, or if you prefer, feedback on a podcast I was listening to on someone actually accusing the United States of America of hypocrisy, that within his own territory, it actually presents itself as the agent of for human right protection. So, and that is the way it presents itself in the world. But when you look at its actions, in most parts, is actually contrary to the things and the principles that it believes in. And most of these principles of human rights, freedom of defense of human rights, is actually not for all. All right. So we see in the cases, in many situations in the United States, where the government agency, the law, for example, the law enforcement agency, actually can actually murder people. I mean, on a basis, simply on the basis of their ethnicity and this color of their skin. And it should be noted that that is not only limited to the United States of America, but it is actually most of the Western country. Again, it's also important to realize that even within other countries, for example, some country in Africa, for example, we also have police also indiscriminately killing their own people. All right. But that is on for different reasons. It is not ethnically motivated murder or atrocity. But the one you have in the United States and also in Italy, for example, and other parts of the Western world, it is a atrocity, inhuman treatment that is actually motivated by racially motivated or ethnically motivated, incited. So this is the argument of the podcast I was listening to. So the point is that the Western country in general, they operate on one specific principle and ideology that many countries in the southern part of the world haven't really seemed to come to realize. You find many countries in the southern part of the world, the non-predominantly white society actually, debating, making judgment, arguing, complaining about the bias of the Western society against people of different culture and ethnicity, and how they perpetrate evil and atrocity across the world, while at the same time they are preaching democracy, posing themselves to be the leader of democracy and defender of the principles of fundamental human rights all across the world. It is simple. The Western country operates on a principle called the survival of the fittest. Okay. They operate on that principle, the principle of natural selection that was started to be developed by Charles Darwin, Charles Darwin, in the classical time. So this is the principles that governs the all the activities, the interactions of the Western government, society with other countries of the world, even among themselves. Okay, so if you are weak, then the most powerful party is going to take advantage of you. And we even see it very playing out intuitively in economic sector. For example, the stronger a company's is or an individual is in a market setting, for example, the more bargaining power and control they have to actually do a more competitive bargain with their partners. You understand? To their own personal advantage. So they have to leverage their strength, their position, their outstandingness against to exploit other party, their party that have less competitive power and advantage. In the economic sector, it also happens in there. Also, we also have the same thing in politics. We also have the same thing in ecosystem. In the natural habitats, the animals that are likely to last the longest are those that are strong. Fearful, strong animals are likely to last the longest. Those animals that are not strong, weak, they will just be serving as meal and prey to the predators of the ecosystem of the habitat. So this is the principle of the Western world. So it's not something you have to negotiate, that countries and people have to actually negotiate. What you have to do instead is to actually begin to develop your own personal strengths. Partner with build a partnership, have strategic partnership that allow you to actually build and develop your own strength. Like for example, China. It will be difficult today for United States of America to take on China in economic battle, in political battle, even in the military combat. Why? Because both countries are technologically sophisticated. So the war, military combat between these two powerful countries, there will not be any winner. You understand? So, because both countries are technologically sophisticated, they are in possession of advanced military might and power and forces and artillery. And so United States is just in a position to respect China. The same thing with Russia. Although Russia is not, it has even about 10% of the United States GDP, or 10%, or about more than a little bit more than that, but yet they still possess this military strength that United States cannot just threaten Russia. So you have to think twice because they also possess a nuclear warhead, and that is why Russia is able to do what it's doing in Ukraine, and uh, and the NATO alliance and the Pentagon alliance, they don't want a direct combat with Russia. So rather, they are doing a proxy war with Russia using the Ukraine. Why? Because they operate on the principle of survival of the fittest. Uh, so Russia is equally strong, China is equally strong, and doing battles with these advanced countries is catastrophic. You understand? So then, this power and their ideology of the survival of the fittest, they implement it in their relation with less developed countries. So all developed countries of the world, you should always expect this, given the ideology, the nature, the understanding, the mentality of the Western society. It's not something you should negotiate. They should not negotiate about, or argue about, criticize about, or try to even preach or stage a protest, a peaceful protest to demonstrate their grievances to the injustice. Because this is the way that the Western world actually functions. Even their assistance, their help, their aid is also, they also leverage their aids to get what they want. If they are giving you assistance or help, it's also a weapon, it's also a means that they can use to control you. So I really think it's a high time that this country, rather than talk complaining about the injustices of the Western world, they should actually begin to build their own strength, develop alongside. I know that they have a lot of strategy, a lot of whip means by which they are able to actually prevent and limit other underdeveloped country or emerging society not to actually reach their full potential, because that would stand to be a threat to their dominance and their supreme positions in relation to this developed world. So it's a critical situation, I should say, because even if, but China, they're lucky they've escaped the trap, and other parts of the world that they have been able to develop despite in the presence, standing in the presence of these primordial predators. But the rest country like India and other emerging society, um, I really, I really wonder that they may not be able to actually reach the same advancement, because the Western world has in possession different means by which they can actually, limit them not to reach their full potential, so that they can keep them in check from reaching their full potential. So this is just my take and my feedback in response to these in the podcast I just listened a while ago. All right, I think I should stop here. Cheers.